today we're talking about parenting and how most people get it wrong. I think you think the same thing. And that's kind of why we're going to talk about it, right? You've had enough people talk to you about, hey, you should run a parenting course. And, I've got enough people that consistently tell me that my kids are the most well-behaved kids and they're the kindest and sweetest kids. And it's not because I did anything special. It's because I treat them like fucking adults. Like I think parenting gets well, first of all, our generation, like we're the same age, our generation of parents, they just had no fucking clue what they were doing. I genuinely believe that. And because of all of that, we've learned the different ways to take kids through emotions. And it's
Right.
based off of shit that we wish that would have happened to us. Now we're giving it to them and it's having amazing results. Right?
Yeah. And the most annoying comment that I get when I make a parenting post is they'll be like, just wait till this guy has kids. It's like, bro, I got 2 kids under
I'm
10.
balls deep in that.
Yeah. Okay. 2 boys who are the most respectful kids when they're out in public. And then they're in absolute animals behind closed doors. And then when it's time to get their shit together for something, they say, yes, dad. Yes, mom. That's their response.
And wait, do you beat the hell out of your kids?
I've never actually even spanked my kids. Never.
I've never I spanked my son once on a diaper, and then my daughter, I had to spank. No, I shouldn't say I had to, but I was like at a loss a little bit, and we're like, all right, maybe she just needs a little. She's spicy, so I'm like, maybe she just needs a little. And I like barely patted her butt with a little wooden spoon, and she broke down. And I'm like, fuck this, I'm never doing that again. There's no reason to do that. There's no reason to do that. In all honesty, like if I got my shit together, there's really no reason why my child would ever push my buttons enough to spank them. And that's the thing I hear the most about. Like, well, he pushed my buttons and they know how to get to me and I had to do this to discipline them. I'm like, that's completely incorrect.
Yeah, think about what that person just said, that their emotions are controlled by a child. He
I,
pushed my buttons and knows how to get to me. Bro, that's the lamest shit I've ever heard. Your emotions and you as a human are controlled by that child. And guess what? They know it too. It's not
uh-huh.
something they haven't figured out. They know how to control you because our children look to us for survival. Like that survival instinct and them mirroring us and learning from us, right? It's like when your son's first trying to learn to ride a strider or a bike and he falls and he's looking at you and mom or dad, how should I react? This was a little uncomfortable. And then if you're like, dude, awesome, way to take that digger. Yeah, we form their reactions.
Like kid falls off his bike. And if you're like, my God, are you okay? Waterworks.
Yeah. And
But if
and
you're like, hey, you're fine, dude. It's all good. Shit happens.
and you know what another one that bugs me is when people say their kids are just shy. So this is gonna test some people. My kid is just shy. What was your kid like when they were 2 or 3? I bet you they thought they could conquer the world. 2 and 3-year-olds have the most confidence out of any group of children, 1 to 18, okay? And we are the ones who stifle that confidence by telling them,
Mm.
"No, don't do that. You're being too loud. Go over there." Right? We react. We're quick to react to them. We snap at them. And then they're a shell of that version of that 2 and 3-year-old who was like climbing on the couch, jumping off, right? They're trying to
With a
see what
giant
they
poop
can
in his
do.
pants too, by the way. Got a huge poop in his pants, and he's like ninja kicking, backflipping, like doesn't have a care in the world. You're right. We're the ones that are like, hey, don't do that. That stop. Be careful. Like I, we've done it wrong for a long time too. And I remember my wife would consistently say things like, "Be careful," and I had to go, "No, don't be careful. Like, there's no
Mhm,
reason for him to be careful
mhm,
right now. They're just fucking monkey bars.
mhm.
Like, have at it, bro. Like, full send."
Yeah, we
And
careful should not be in our language as parents. So think about that. Be careful. So as an adult, are they actually gonna like go and apply for that big job? Or are they gonna be careful? Are they actually gonna strive and open that business that they've always wanted to? Or are they gonna
no,
be
no, no. Be
careful?
careful.
Are they
Be
gonna like
careful.
go after that acting job or their passion, be a freaking astronaut because that's what they want to be? No, they're going to be careful. We don't realize like what that does to their psyche, the words that we
Hmm.
choose, right? People who say like, "Oh, I can't afford that." It's like, okay, you're also building a poor mentality, a broke mentality. and they're gonna realize this is who we are. We can't change that. There's nothing we can do versus just saying like, what value can you create to going out and then like earn that? And it's like, well, I probably could do this and I could do this instead of just saying like, no, we can't afford that or we're not gonna buy that or I never tell my kids no. Now people may like, what? You just give them everything? I don't give them shit. So like let's break that down. If I don't tell my kids no, but I also don't just give them stuff, I go about it a different way because it's not just black and white. Just reframe the way that you're gonna answer their question. So if my kids ask if they can have something, one, I will like tell them, ask me after we get to this or after this. Like let's postpone this conversation. So I don't tell them no in the moment. And then if they want something, I always let them know like you know how to earn money. You know how to create value. So are you gonna spend your own money on that? And they'll think about it. Is it worth me spending my money on this or is it not? And I tell them, like, you can always bring your money wherever we go and spend the dollars that you've earned. Now, I don't want them to really get caught up in trading time for money because that's what everyone else does, right? They plunge in a clock, they get a
Mhm.
salary, and then they come back. So I try to talk to them about like what value are you going to create? Because value could be like what we're doing. We put value on the internet and that's an asset, a media asset portfolio, and we could get paid off those things far later. So I try to like put that in their head, like what value can you bring to someone to like exchange dollars or they can
Mhm.
compound. So I just use different verbiage, but if have the same outcome that you guys have, but I go about it a completely different way.
Yeah, and I think, like, so we're talking about parenting, we're talking about how to effectively parent from 2 dudes that have kids, so we are parents, just for the wise guys. Let's take it back to basically the origin of child behavior, and that is the parents.
Mhm,
This is this part that, like, every parent almost instinctively knows this, but then when it gets brought up to them specifically, it's like itching powder. They don't like to hear it, right? If my kid is a little terror, or my kid is not kind, or my kid gives up quickly, or my kid doesn't wanna do hard things, there's a likelihood that we can trace that back to watching the parents and watch them not be kind, give up on things, you know. So the real true effective way to raise good kids is to be good parents, like good humans. Like, where's your identity? You know, it always goes back to that same thing. If you know your identity is in Christ and what Christ determines about you, then that means that I'm gonna show up in life a completely different person, and
mhm,
especially the way that I parent, right? Knowing that my identity is in the Father has given me this incredible ability to understand what my son needs because I've understood what God has given me my whole life. A lot of grace, a lot of
mhm,
forgiveness, a lot of kindness, patience, love, all these things that I transition into, well, that's probably what my son needs, right? Now, I don't know, that's sometimes I know people are going to hear like, well, you know, it's being kind and patient all the time that doesn't work. And the truth is, it does work if the parents are buttoned up. If the
mhm,
parents know who they are and they are following Christ and they're in their Bibles and they're honoring their marriage and they're doing what they need to be doing in terms of being obedient to Christ, the transition to your kids is much easier. But if you're not obeying what God has in mind for you, and you're not locked in and in tune with what Christ says about you, and you don't read scripture and you don't pray and you don't pray with your wife and you don't lead that way, it's going to be very difficult to teach your kids anything.
mhm,
Don't you agree? Like, that's where the root cause of bad kids and bad parenting stems from. The same reason why we look at guys who are poor leaders and poor, their marriages are crumbling. Bad kids and bad marriages are almost synonymous.
mhm, for sure.
And that's because the dads aren't leading anywhere, especially spiritually. And if they were, then when they met their children with words like, hey, we can do hard things. I know doing that is hard for you, but my expectation is you can do hard things because guess what? Your dad does hard things. And I know you watch your dad do hard things. That's a conversation that you can't fake that conversation. Just like you can't fake having a good body. You got to go to the gym and eat right. You can't fake talking to your kid like that. That's the big problem nowadays. Don't you do you agree or am I totally off the wall?
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. We are forever that example, right? And when you say being spiritually led, if we're not being led by the Father, our children, like, are they gonna do as we do or do as we say? Like, they're gonna do as we do. Like, the amount of fathers who I've met who have insecurities and fear their inadequacies, their sons are very insecure too,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And they want to go about it different and they want to talk to them different and tell them what to do or how they should act, but yet they don't understand. One of the biggest things that bugs me is like if I see men yell at their sons not to cry and they're like, regulate your emotions. It's like, do you know what that means? Do you know what regulate your emotions mean? Just curious. Like, and they don't know, but they've heard that come from somewhere. And so they want to inflict it on their son. But he's like, bro, he sees you not regulate yourself. He doesn't
And
know what that means because he's never seen an example. You snap at their mom, you snap at them, you pissed at the fucking
so good.
game, right? You get pissed at a game. So
And
why
even
would
worse,
he?
Jesse,
Yeah,
they feel it. Like sometimes they don't even have to see it, but spiritual energy is such a thing, they feel it. So like the dad X is yelling at his son to regulate his emotions, but same dad X has something happen to him negatively, and the first thing he does is goes and runs and watches porn because he can't regulate his emotions, and he's got to get a dopamine hit, and porn is his outlet. You're telling me that that son doesn't feel that spiritual energy? Like we've talked about what doing that does and how it allows the enemy to just walk right through your front door. So you got a guy that's yelling at his kid to regulate his emotions on the baseball field because he's struck out. Regulate your fucking emotions. We don't do that. We don't cry. And the same dad has his wife say, hey, what you just said really hurt my feelings. And he gets so emotionally unregulated that he has to go jack off to Pornhub to get a dopamine fix to correct that behavior. Like that's the kind of shit that we're trying to impart to you guys listening to this. And sorry, wives, if you're going to catch this, that's the reality of the situation. We're trying to help you guys understand that you can't just bark at your kids and be all lost in the sauce yourself. If you know how to, if your son watches you have an interaction with your wife where she goes, hey, what you said really hurt my feelings, and you go, I cannot believe that I actually did that. I'm so sorry. I never should have talked to you that way. Will you forgive me? That's your son watching you regulate your emotions in real time so that when he's having a full breakdown, which kids do, and you say, hey, bud, hey, listen, I understand how that makes you feel, but we know how to control that, right? You can get on top. You've seen dad do that, right? Conversation is completely different,
for
but you
sure.
can't fake that.
For sure. And it's the consistency part, right? You
Yes.
I believe that you consistently pray, read the Bible, hit the gym, and love your wife. So I believe you consistently do that. And one of the things I've heard dad say is like, I didn't raise my kids this way. And it's like, did you consistently talk about that? Or was it a
Yes, you
one-off
did.
conversation? It was
Yes, you did
probably
raise your kids that way.
you did because it was a lack of you participating and being consistent with how you disciple your son. A lack of you being consistent with the direction that you're pointing or the culture. Because too many men, right, when you're going, I need to be spiritually obeying the Father. So therefore, with that, it's going to actually create a culture in our home because we are in charge of the culture we create. And if we don't, one's going to be created anyways, regardless, good, bad, or ugly. Okay. And then that's the culture our children are going to grow up in. And that is on us as fathers to cultivate, craft, and implement intentionally the culture in our home. And too many men just like are a leaf tossed in the wind, right? And then they want to complain about their children not doing something, but they have no consistency in their life. They're not consistently loving their wife, reading the Bible, praying. Like my my son last night and my wife, they were sick. They got some sort of food poisoning. They both threw up yesterday. Me and my younger son, we sat at the foot of the bed and we prayed together. And it was like, he was like, yep, let's pray. They were asleep. We prayed over them in their bed. We prayed out loud. And it was just a normal thing. Like my younger son's like, yeah, we pray before we go to bed. We're going to still
Yes.
do it, even though they passed out early because they weren't feeling well. We're still going to pray over them. It wasn't like anything extra. It was just, this is what we do.
That's because your son watched you do that time after time after time. They don't remember the one-off things. They remember what you do consistently, right?
Mhm,
And that's translation. It's the same. I want to go back to what you said about culture, because culture is such a thing. This is such a thing that will resonate with dudes, especially in the South. Again, most men here, they talk about Alabama football or Georgia football and the culture that Kirby Smart built and the culture that Nick Saban built. And they love that. They're like, that's culture, baby. Where's a culture winning? Turn around and have the shittiest culture of winning in their own home because they can't figure out how to do this. It's just a cacophony of excuses and just I don't, I didn't like you said, I didn't raise my kid to be this way, yet every decision that you're making, dad, is you raising your kid to be that way, right? Like
mhm,
to build culture, they have to watch you do it time and time and time again. To build culture on a football team, you have to raise the standard to what you want it to be to fit the culture. And then you have to hold everyone to that line, including yourself. That's the
mhm,
part where dads across the board are missing. You raise you set the standard, dads. And then you're not only not holding your kids and your wife to that standard, you're not holding yourself to it.
mhm,
You're not holding yourself to it. So don't tell your kids, hey, we don't quit. And then you say that to your wife, I'm going to start working out next week. And then the alarm goes off and the fucking first thing you do is quit.
mhm.
That is implementing a culture of quitting because your kids smell it on you. I hope if anything in this podcast episode, dads understand that your bullshit, the shit that comes out of your mouth and the actions that you produce, your kids can smell it. Other kids can smell it. Other kids know it. Other wives can smell it all over you. And like, that's the culture that you're creating.
100%. And when I love this saying that there's no such thing as bad kids, just a lack of leadership. And when Adam, you're talking about that standard, the guys who don't have that standard, they're the ones with the lack of leadership. Therefore, they're the ones who have these perceived bad kids. But it all goes back, it falls on them 100%. Even if you're not in the home as much because you're working 50 hours a week, guess what? In the Bible, these men were sheep herders who worked sun up to sundown. And then they went home and intentionally discipled their family for the rest of the evening.
Hmm.
Wee hours of the night, went to bed, did it all on repeat. Okay. All on repeat. So, what is our excuse? Like, what is the excuse? You want to go in the garage and work on something while your kids are doing their own thing. And that's not a good father. Like, it's way easier to be a decent dad than a decent husband. So I'm going to kind of like go on this side thing of if you truly want to be a great father, first you have to be a great husband and you have to love their wife. Because the data tells us
100%.
children who are emotionally stable and have the most confidence live in homes where the father loves the mother.
Fact.
So if you can't get your own marriage in order, you can't just be like, well, I'm going to just live through my children and have that in order because theirs is going to be fucked up too. And the
Hmm.
stats say in Deuteronomy and the American Psychology Association, both biblical and secular, that your marriage, your social dynamic within there, that's going to be passed on 3 to 5 generations removed from you. So you're probably doing the same thing your parents did and their parents did, and your kids are going to have the same miserable marriage. Unless you intentionally change that. 100% intentional.
It's not a wand. Like I hope you guys understand. I hope you hear what Jesse's saying. Intentionality means you're going to do hard things. You're going to die to yourself. You're not going to do everything that you want to do. Life isn't about you. I'm going to be intentional with my time and I'm going to teach my son something. Or just being intentional about serving your wife could teach your kids more about life than anything that you would actually have to set aside and teach them just by doing that alone. loving your wife, serving her, holding space for her, allowing her to love the color pink, holding masculine energy, taking it off of your wife, all those things, especially if you have a son, that teaches that boy more about being a man than anything. And second, if you have a daughter, that teaches your daughter this is what right looks like. So just so you know, honey, and I will say this as we get in an argument and I have to die to myself and I find myself apologizing. I say, Memphis, come here. You see what your dad is doing? I was wrong. And I want you to watch me apologize to your mom. And I want you to see this because this is what you should expect from your husband one day. And she's 7. I don't give a shit. She's going to have a husband one day. And I want her to know, hey, if you're not doing what my dad did, then you're going to pound sand, pal, because that's my expectation, right? And I'll never forget, I said this to my wife one time and I regret saying it. I said to her, her standards are too high. I regret saying that. I regret saying that. And she looked at me and she was like, yeah, maybe that's the problem. My standards are too high. I had a dad that showed me what it was supposed to look like, and you're fucking missing the mark. Like, so then obviously we've rebounded from that kind of behavior, but that's what my daughter is gonna see. And that's what my son is gonna he's gonna be able to say, like, well, I don't know, guys. Like I watched my dad apologize to my mom all the time. Like I watched my dad love and honor my mom. My dad never cheated on my mom. My dad didn't watch pornography. That's
Mhm.
who my dad is. That's who I should be. If you're dicked up, don't expect your kids to not be dicked up. That's like day one nonsense. That's day one of being a dad. Get it through your thick skulls that if you have baggage that you constantly carry around and that's why you're fat and lazy, that's your kids are going to go, that's what they're going to experience.
For sure.
You're
And when you talk about making your kids capable, I want to give some examples of the intentional discipleship. When my son was 3, about 3-ish, we had him start making his own eggs. Now you might think like 3-year-old, that sounds like a mess, but I was thinking long term. I'm going to make him capable. I'll clean up the mess as it goes. And there was times he would crack eggs where he would smash it right on the, you know, granite countertop. And then there was times he would tink, 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 tink forever. And it's like, all right, you got to find a middle ground there, bud. And then he would do it. I didn't care about the mess because I wanted him to be able to make me breakfast at 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. And now he can completely make everyone their own breakfast because we were willing to get messy. We were willing to get messy. Both of my boys, they both got pocket knives about 2.5, 3 years old. And now people might be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Here was the intention behind it. One, they're not actually strong enough to hurt themselves at that point versus the first pocket knife he gets, he's 8 and can really do some damage. And I remember him opening up this pocket knife, not this one, but the one I gave him, and he cut his finger while he's in a stroller. And he's just looking at this because a tiny bit of blood's coming down his finger. And I'm watching him and my wife's pushing the stroller and she finally notices it and she starts to go into a panic. And I'm like, I've been watching it. And she's like, okay, everything's fine. Everything's fine. And he just looked at it forever and then just went back to playing with it. And he didn't know that that was a negative. He just didn't. So where I'm getting at is we actually taught him how to then cut part of like making dinner with a knife really young. Now, pocket knives aren't super exciting. So it's not like they went around cutting everything. But when there was an Amazon box, they would run, go pick up their knives, and they knew how to cut them without actually having an accident. But I taught them so young that they were completely comfortable. And like grandparents and other people's parents are like, no, you don't give that kid shouldn't have a knife because they'll grab a knife in public they'll grab a knife in we'll say a holiday to cut open a present. And it's like, no, they're capable because I empowered them. I wanted them to make the mistakes early so they're completely capable when all these other kids are walking around like little retards because their parents did everything for them. And like, that's just one example of like, I want them to get messy for the long-term gain. And I was willing to put in that work and clean up so they could figure it out. Like,
But see, the world conditions parents though to be always in a hurry. Get to the thing. Go here. We're late.
Mhm.
Hurry up. Do this. Gotta hustle more. I gotta work. You gotta do it. And there's no time and space for you to just sit and let a kid be messy and it not ruin your day. So that's why, again, it's incumbent on parents. Stop living in a way that you think you've got to be doing all these things. The thing that you need to be doing is letting your kids make messes, teaching them how to be efficient, normal human beings. And there's no time that's too early for that.
Yeah, and one of the things you said in the very beginning that I feel like we didn't touch on enough is you said you'd give them the respect of adults, right? I'm paraphrasing. One of
Yeah,
the things that I tell parents so much is that give your child the respect of an adult and the freedom of a child. And it's
right.
like, what? What does that mean? It's like those both can be true at the same time. I don't tell my kid to put a jacket on if it's cold outside. If Adam was at my house and it's winter, I'm not going to be like, Adam, make sure you put a jacket on. Okay. I want him to learn. And I'll deal with the situation where if he's cold, because all these parents are going to listen. Well, what about if they're complaining? Okay. He made the choice. I gave him the respect of an adult, right? I don't always answer things for him, solve the problems for him. I wouldn't tell Adam, hey, Adam, make sure you brush your teeth before you go to bed, bud. No, he knows to brush his teeth because we brush our teeth, right? But I give him this freedom to still be a child and play, but they have to learn. I want them to learn, and I stick to my guns every time. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to have the respect. Or one time my son wanted to ride his bike. We live on a hill all the way down to go to the creek. And I was like, you're pushing that thing back up because it's a hill. The amount of time that it took him to get that up screaming, my wife was so annoyed. I had to send her home 2 different times because she was embarrassed by what the neighbors would thought because he was just pissed. My younger son, pissed, pushing it. Guess what? I stuck to my word and I just stood there, did not care in the world that he was pissed. And I was able to use that later by it's like, okay, you remember follows through with what he says. You remember when you had to push your bike up the hill? Yes. So I'm telling you, this is what I'm going to do, or this is going to be the outcome. Are you okay with that? Because you know I'm going to follow through. Yes. So he knows. He trusts that I'm going to follow through with my word. I'm not going back on my word. Just like me and you. If we're in business together, I'm going to tell you something and you can trust Jesse's going to follow through with it. Equally to my son is how I'm correlating that. I give him the respect of an adult, but still let him be a child.
Yeah, I love that, and I totally agree. And the way that I incorporate that is when I tell my kids to do something, I explain to them why.
Yeah.
Like, I need you to have your baseball shoes on and your water bottle filled up and all of your shit at the door at this time. And I don't leave it at that because that's just an instruction to a child. They're not thinking about it. I say, why would we want that? And then let them explain to me. Take the time, let him explain, even if he's wrong. Then I go back and say, well, listen, this is really why. Because if you don't have all your stuff ready, then I'm going to leave without you. And then I'm going to go to your baseball practice and you're not going to be there. And that seems pretty stupid. And
Hmm.
then I'm going to have to tell everybody there the reason I'm here and you're not here is because you couldn't put your shoes on, right? That's going to be what? And he goes, embarrassing. And I say, see how there's a cause and effect here. I want you to understand that the reason why I'm telling you to get all of your stuff together is so that when I say it's time to leave, you're prepared. Otherwise, you're getting left home, right? And so that's one way that I respect my children because I don't just tell them what to do. I tell them why we're doing things.
Hmm.
Like you said, you don't have to tell your kids to brush their teeth at night. Why? Probably because one of two things happened. They either got a cavity and that really sucked, and you had to explain to them that's what happens when you don't brush your teeth, or you explain to them this is how we prevent those things from happening. You don't want to be a disgusting person and have gunk all over your teeth and have food stuck everywhere. That tells people that you're lazy. Are you lazy? My son will say, no, I'm not lazy. Well, then not brushing your teeth is lazy behavior.
Mhm.
So by doing that, you're communicating to a child, here's what my expectation is, and here's why I have that expectation. And then give them freedom as a kid. If they don't brush their teeth and they get a cavity, that sucks. My son has
Yeah.
had a cavity. And in the dentist's office, I say, why do you think you have a cavity? Well, because I skip brushing my teeth at night. And the dentist looks at me, you don't make him brush his teeth. I'm like, no, why am I going to make him brush his teeth? He should know that if he doesn't brush his teeth, that's the consequence. I'm prepared for that. I don't mind a single cavity. It's not going to kill him. But then,
Yeah.
like you said, with the bike, it's like that's the mechanism which you go, see, that's why we don't do that. And the reason why I know generationally parents missed on that is because you and I have to coach grown men and go, so you see how having porn on your phone when your wife asks to use your phone to take a picture, that's like touching a hot stove. Do you know why we don't touch hot stoves? Well, because it hurts. Yeah, it does hurt. You know why you don't want to have porn on your phone when your wife asks to use your phone? Because that fucking hurts. Like now I'm having to do that to adult men, 50-year-old men, 40-year-old men who own businesses, who are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. You're having to explain this shit to. And I don't think my son at 40 is going to have to be explained why we don't do some things. He's going to know.
Mhm. Yes.
That's the goal here.
Yeah, the goal is not for him to have to figure it out on his own, right? Go blindly, have his marriage in complete shambles, be in a broken home, his wife kick him out because he did not know what to do. He did not know what it looked like to be good at being a man or how to lead a home. That's what I'm setting my sons up for. Because if I've already been to the top of the mountain, why would I not like show them the way? Like it just doesn't make sense. Like the math doesn't math. Why would you be like, man, that fucking sucked. My dad didn't show me the way. So now I'm gonna
Right.
just not spend all the time. Or you're gonna wait and talk to him in the moment. That's not how that works either, because he's getting all this other programming, external programming in him. And he's gonna be like, well, dad, how come you didn't tell me this sooner? How come I had to come to you and ask? Oh, well, son, like I figure like that. Why would I tell you at 13? My wife does not carry a single thing to the car or from the car. My sons will do it for them. But you wanna know why? It's because 'cause they've only ever seen me carry her shit for her.
Why is that so hard for men to understand? Like if you're gonna tell your kids, "Hey, get all of mom's stuff, like, don't let her carry that stuff in," and they're gonna go, "Well, why? You don't do that." Like, that should be the goal, to never have your kids say, "Why? Dad doesn't do that."
They argue about who gets to open her door or who gets to carry one of her 17 cups that go into the car when we get in there,
So you've got a
right?
Stanley Cup wife too, yeah, I get
Yes,
it.
and all her concoctions and different drinks or her, like, 3 bags, they want to carry those things. And it's funny that they argue about it, of, like, who gets to do which part for mom as we're getting in the car or getting back in the house, and I love it, and I don't say anything about it at all, but on internally, I'm like, "Dude, this is so cool."
Yeah, and so, like, honestly, the biggest takeaway from this is simply this, dads. If you're not buttoned up and you don't have any standards because you don't read the Bible so that scripture hasn't gripped your heart and given you a biblical standard, stop expecting your kids to have any standards. Stop expecting them to act as if they're grown adults. Stop expecting them to be self-sufficient when you're not self-sufficient. You need your wife to act as your mommy and remind you of all this stuff. Like, it, if you're not buttoned up, then stop parenting your kids for a little while. That should be motivation for you to get your shit together enough that you can start having conversations with your son and your daughter because they won't smell through your bullcrap.
Mhm.
Like, guys gotta figure it out. This is a multi-part episode in the sense that Jesse and I constantly hammer that the onus is on you, bro. You, the man listening to this, it's your responsibility. If you want the world to teach your children, then don't be surprised when they grow up to be worldly children.
Mhm.
But if you want Christ to teach your children, that means you have to be taught by him first, which means you have to lay your life down. You have to be a servant. You have to carry your cross. You have to accept the invitation to join the yoke of Christ. You have to be willing to do all that stuff first, not second, first. And if you have chinks in the armor and you have kids that aren't quite where you want them to be, you have got to go stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself and go, where can we be honest? Where are we not buttoned up? Because we are the problem, not them. We are. I
Mhm.
am. What do I need to do? And then have the guts to figure that out
Yep, and if you ever wanna be a great father, the rent is due every single day,
every day.
okay? And I want you guys to stay tuned and look forward, like you said, this is gonna be a multi-part series, and just wait till we talk about how spanking is due to a lack of leadership, and we get in
Oh
depth
boy.
on that, and how only men and women who lack leadership in their home wanna justify it biblically by taking verses out of context. Okay? So stay
Yep.
tuned because that's gonna be
That's
some
going to be
fire.
That's going to be fire. That's going to be a tough one to understand. And listen, guys, we're not pointing the finger and telling you how wrong you are. We're saying, hey, bro, if you want to know the way ahead, ask those coming back. And
Mhm,
Jesse and I, to an extent, are on our way back. Why wouldn't we want to share this stuff with you? My proudest moment is when I go anywhere and I have somebody say that my children are the kindest, most well behaved children. That is a reflection of my parenting. And that I tell them, that's why I'm exhausted at night. That's why I'm tired because I'm intentionally parenting my
mhm,
children, and I'm proud of that. And I look at my wife at night and I go, we both are like, I'm exhausted. I go, I know, because we just parented the shit out of our kids all day, and it was the greatest blessing ever.
mhm.
Right? They're not a burden. You brought them here, so you are responsible for what they turn into, and it's a reflection of who you are. And if you've got bad kids, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and understand, where am I bad? Where and that's such a hyperbolic word. Where am I missing the mark?
Yes.
Where am I dropping the ball? Where am I missing the mark? And then do things to correct that. If you're listening to this podcast, you're already a step in the right direction because you're going, hey, these two numbskulls seem like they figured it out. Let me hear what they're saying. And I think God has been ultimately extremely and exceptionally kind to both Jesse and I. And we're in this with you guys. So we're in the thick of it right now. We're raising kids of our own right now. So, anyways, stay tuned for the next edition of this podcast. It's going to be the spanking piece is a huge piece. We've got to cover that, and we'll do that next time. So thanks for being with us, guys.
Thank you.